Was this a dress rehearsal for William and Catherine being king and queen? What is behind Meghan Markle's solo trips to the red carpet? And why will Christmas at Sandringham be very different this year? Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and on the panel today is the Mail on Sunday's royal correspondent, Natasha Livingstone, the paper's editor-at-large, Charlotte Griffiths, and of course the Daily Mail's diary editor, Richard Eden. Welcome to you all. Now, we're getting ever closer to this mark of 350,000 subscribers to our channel. Can you or your friends help us to just smidge over that line? Please do just click that subscribe button. It's free and you'll never miss our brilliant royal content. I've even, in news, got my mother to subscribe after all these years. I mean, and that's the holy grail, but we need more of you. Now, we did promise you last week that we'd bring you all the news from Catherine's now annual Christmas Carol concert. So let's kick things off there. Natasha, you were there.
Yeah.
Tell us, what was the atmosphere like in there? Because it looked gorgeous enough just even on social media, etc.
Yeah, I mean, what a perk of the job. It was just absolutely beautiful. I mean, the Abbey alone is just stunning architecturally. And then when you get all the design in there, they had these beautifully lit Christmas trees. Just the decor was incredible. And then it was also just the atmosphere of knowing that so many people who'd been invited had kind of really struggled throughout the year, maybe with cancer or maybe had helped other people. And there was just this sense that everyone was really grateful to be there. And then obviously seeing the princess and then the three young children who are just adorable. Yeah, it was just a sort of really festive, happy atmosphere.
Now, one of the big questions that everybody is obviously keen to hear about is, how did Catherine seem in herself?
Yeah, I think she seemed well. I mean, she arrived early on her own, which I think is a sign of confidence that she kind of felt comfortable doing that. Obviously, she looked incredibly well put together, and she was speaking as well prior to the ceremony with a lot of the artists who were involved. And, you know, she also spoke quite candidly to Polo, the singer, saying, you know, this time last year, you know, I had no idea what would be in store for me this year. So clearly she's feeling kind of reflective of everything that's happened, but ultimately kind of, yeah, comfortable and confident going ahead into the future.
It was quite poignant, wasn't it, hearing that kind of honesty from a member of the royal family?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite rare. I mean, you know, you could not really imagine, you know, the late Queen being so kind of candid about her feelings and just even her health struggles. So, yeah, I think people have really felt close to the princess this year, and I think it's really amazing that she's then kind of giving that back a bit to people around her.
And as ever, we just keep seeing these milestones of those royal children growing up. They had some lovely interactions, didn't they, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, isn't it wonderful that, you know, we don't get that many opportunities to see the royal children. So when we do, we're sort of always, you know, studying their movements and everything, but they're on their best behaviour. You know, they were helping each other sort of light their candles. There's one point where Prince George, I think, was sort of directing his younger brother, Prince Louis, making sure he, you know, went to the right pew or whatever.
Louis always strikes me as not the easiest to manage.
I mean, it's clear that they're very well brought up.
Yeah.
You know, parents are clearly doing a good job, and obviously before they go said, this is what we want you to do. Yeah. It's usually Charlotte that we've seen kind of organising her brothers, but here, you know, maybe Prince George is thinking, you know what, I'm going to be king one day, so I'm going to be a bit more assertive.
You just know that conversation's already happened in there somewhere in the sibling squabbles.
Yeah, so it's fun to watch.
Yeah. Oh God, don't get us started down that track. You know, we love to talk about fashion, Charlotte, now, and Catherine did make a cheeky little tweak to that coat that we've seen before.
Yeah, so she wore a beautiful red Alexander McQueen Sarah Burton coat, which probably cost a fortune and is a few years old. But then she reimagined it with a very cheap, dare I say, £20 bow from Jigsaw, where she used to work. And it goes to show that's all it costs, really, £20. And you've got like a brand new outfit. So I was quite impressed with Kate. She stuck the bow on, looked like a whole new coat.
Reinvention at its best.
Well done,
Reinvention
Kate.
and recycling, we loved it. Well, we will have more great pictures from Catherine's Carol service a little bit later in the show. Before that, we want to take a look at William, who was in Paris with Presidents Macron, Trump and other world leaders. So again, Natasha was there. Gosh, tell us all about that.
Yeah, so I got to hop on the Eurostar to Paris, which was always a lovely experience. And so Prince William was there for the ceremony of the reopening of Notre Dame, obviously the incredible cathedral in Paris that was partially destroyed in the fire 5 years ago. And so Emmanuel Macron, the French president, had organised this incredible ceremony with world leaders to celebrate it finally reopening after 5 years of construction. And this was a really big moment for Prince William to effectively represent the UK and and kind of, it's him continuing to step forward as a statesman, a global leader amongst, other world leaders. So I think he did incredibly well.
And his interactions with President-elect Trump got a lot of attention, didn't they?
Yeah, so I was there for the Royal Rota to cover the meeting rather than the ceremony. And this got a lot of attention because anything involving President-elect Donald Trump gets a lot of attention. But it was also quite fraught in how it happened, because they were meant to have this meeting very hastily organised earlier in the afternoon before the ceremony. And then because of this terrible storm we had here in the UK, Prince William was delayed and they had to reschedule it after the ceremony. But, they were just both totally calm. It was held at the ambassador's residence in France. And then Trump walked in, Prince William was already there. They did that sort of really firm handshake, arm shake that we know President Trump does. And then Trump said, William, he's a great man. He's doing a fantastic job. So, the meeting went well. And, big moment for William.
Well, Donald would know. It's interesting, isn't it? That obviously diplomats, Richard, will be hoping that the royals can be a bit of a secret weapon in smoothing diplomatic relationships between world leaders.
Yes.
And British interests. What's your thoughts?
Definitely. Well, here we have, a new Labour government, a socialist government, and they're very anti-Donald Trump. They had volunteers were sent out to campaign for Kamala Harris. So that's awkward in itself.
Yeah.
So this is where it becomes very useful to have an independent head of state, constitutional monarch who is not attached to politics. So, William and the King and the others can be a very useful bridge. And I think, in relations with America and any other countries, that is definitely helpful.
I was curious about, yes, Donald Trump will become president in January, but he's not president yet. Why was he there, not Biden? Why was William the chosen one to be sent to this event?
Well, what we found with Queen Elizabeth was, for this type of event, often it would be then Prince Charles who would attend, on the basis that the Queen can't attend everything and she would send the heir to the throne as her representative. In this way, it kind of works quite nicely, because essentially you've got, the next president and the next king, really.
Yes,
so
yes.
There was a bit of symmetry there. But I think it's, I don't know why it works in the American case, but for us, I think it's just because our head of state doesn't attend everything.
And apparently Jill Biden was there as well, President Biden's wife. But Natasha, did the palace have anything to say about the decision for it to be William to attend this event?
Yeah, the guidance they gave was that because it was very last-minute request from the UK government for a member of the royal family to attend, the King had scheduling engagements, and then that's why Prince William was asked to go instead.
King Charles was washing his hair.
Yeah.
Was that it?
Tending to his plants,
He'll meet Donald Trump eventually.
He
don't
will
worry about
indeed.
that.
Well, Charlotte, speaking of the King and Trump, here's what he said about meeting with William. And I was a bit shaken by this quote. I don't know about you. It says, I asked him about his wife and he said she's doing well. And I asked him about his father, and his father is fighting very hard, and he loves his father and he loves his wife. So it was sad. That's a pretty downbeat statement. What did you make of that?
I have to say, the palace won't have liked that at all, because the juxtaposition of saying Catherine's fine, but with Charles it's very sad. For me, I just thought, oh dear, is he saying that the King's more ill than we think he is? And we know that Trump makes the odd faux pas and he does real talk better than anyone. So, it was kind of unnerving, because you think, has he found out something that we don't know?
It could be, because remember that Catherine has completed her treatment.
Yes.
Whereas the King's treatment is still going. So maybe William was kind of saying that.
Yeah.
And then,
it's ongoing.
then Donald Trump kind of interpreted that as he's still fighting, which he is still being treated. That's a fact.
I hope you're right, Richard. Well, now, Natasha, we'll stick with William for a minute. A couple of days earlier than this, we saw him wearing an apron.
Yeah, so Prince William was at the Passage homelessness shelter in Westminster, which is a place that has been a huge part of his life, because Princess Diana used to take him and Harry when they were younger, and also recently with Homewards, which is his homelessness campaign, the Passage has played a big role in that. And so he was there in his apron, getting his hands dirty, dishing out Christmas dinner to the people at the shelter. So, really nice thing to see him doing and getting involved.
Indeed. Now, at another engagement, Charlotte, he was also presented with a portrait, though not really in the traditional sense.
Yeah, it was such a sweet and I think quite good drawing, but that might be the problem. So it's a kind of cartoon drawing of him, but he's got a real Friar Tuck sort of line of hair around the front.
He probably wishes he did have that.
Well, it was all too accurate. I think that might be the problem. It was too good. So, I mean, William pulled a bit of a face.
It was done by a 10-year-old.
It was.
Let's just stress that.
And it was actually really cute. It was a really cute little drawing. So I'm not surprised that William tucked it into his pocket. I mean, I can imagine that being on his fridge somewhere, back at home. It was just unfortunate sort of reflection of his hair loss journey. But it was very good. It was very good.
Now, it's interesting, isn't it? Do you think it's fair to say, Richard, they've been so prominent this week, it always feels like we're sort of like looking at this dress rehearsal of what it's going to be like when William and Catherine are king and queen.
I really do feel like we've had a glimpse of the future this week because, yes, the centrepiece of the Royal Week has been Catherine's Together at Christmas, which has become a sort of annual event that all the royal family have loved to attend, apart from the king and queen who didn't attend it. But, that was the sort of centrepiece. And then we have had Prince William meeting the next president, and carrying out those engagements overseas. So it has felt like they've taken the lead, and that's, and let's say they've done it extremely well. So, it's a relief, and it shows how strong the royal family is for the next generation. So that's very encouraging.
And I think it's true when you look back over, history, like Catherine's whole demeanour is just so much more confident and relaxed than it used to be, isn't it?
She's a real queen in waiting, I think, and she's always had such amazing poise, great fashion sense, and she's just grown into the job so well. And as you say, this week just feels like a glimpse of the future, doesn't it?
It's incredible. Well, loads more still to come on the show, but there is time now to have a quick look at some of your comments. Patricia wanted to know what David Beckham might be in line for a knighthood for. She wrote, I know very little about the Beckhams, but really, he's going to be knighted for what? Being popular. Shouldn't you get a knighthood after you've done something important for mankind? Maybe being American, I just don't understand it. Richard, are you the one to explain to us why we might be seeing Sir David Beckham?
Yes, remember that he was a very distinguished footballer. He was the captain of the England team.
Yes.
In the old days, you tended to have to do something else in addition to your sort of day job to get an honour. So you'd have to do lots of work for charity. But these days, often people do get honours just for excelling in their particular area. So I think in David Beckham's case, he might deserve an honour just for his, his talents and his work that he's done for England football. But then he has done other stuff as well. And we know it's a sensitive topic because some of those emails were leaked about what he's done for charity in comparison with others who should remain nameless who did receive honours. So it certainly wouldn't surprise me if he does get a knighthood. And, we discussed seeing him at that state banquet last week, and he and Victoria looked very much like Sir David and Lady
part of society, didn't they?
In their finery, yes.
I think we could also add that David Beckham, was he not quite instrumental in the 2012 Olympic bid, coming to London?
Yeah, he played a key role in securing the Olympics for London in 2012. And we do have the New Year's honours coming up, so who knows? Maybe a rise Sir David.
He's also an ambassador for the King's Foundation as well, so that's another charitable role.
Although that's quite a new one, isn't it?
Yes, a new role.
Tick, 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 I think. Well, hopefully that will answer your question. A reminder that we hope to answer a lot more of your questions in a very special Christmas episode of Palace Confidential. Now, last week, one of our viewers called LH suggested that Prince Andrew should devote his time to rescue horses, and Janet Clare agrees, and she says, you kind of brushed over it, but I thought the viewer's suggestion that Andrew should rescue horses was very good. First of all, it would be him actually doing some good that is outside the realm of simulating royal duties. Secondly, if there's any chance of at least slightly repairing his image with people, rescuing animals would probably be the one way he could do it, if he actually did it and did it properly, not just for appearances. And third, it probably fits with a genuine interest and maybe some expertise that he has. Charlotte, does sound like a nice idea in principle, doesn't it? Is it fair to say probably one person who doesn't agree is Andrew?
I think he'd agree with the PR aspect of it. But can you imagine Prince Andrew mucking out a horse's stable?
Would he think that that's beneath him,
I
perhaps?
think he'd think it's beneath him. I mean, this is a family who famously have butlers, squeezing the toothpaste onto their toothbrush.
I mean, well, it is a pain to have to do that.
Yeah, well, it really is.
Yeah.
But, he's grown up with staff. I mean, certainly grooms. There's more grooms in the royal palaces than anywhere else in the world. He would think the idea of looking after a horse is so beneath him. But having said that, the view is right to say that he's newly quite into horses. He wasn't actually the biggest equestrian growing up, but since he's had more, shall we say, free time on his hands, he has got into the horses. And they used to call him the dog walker in chief for a while because he had nothing really to do but look after the Queen's corgis, the late Queen's corgis. So I could see him possibly taking on the horse role, but just not the mucking out.
Not mucking out. Draw the line.
Draw the line.
The horse poo.
Just be pictured with rescue horses. He might do that.
I've got to be honest, where can I put in my CV for dog walker in chief? That sounds like my ideal job. But on that note, let's have a look at Laurie's comment. She wrote, Harry is sounding more and more like his Uncle Andrew every day. Oh, that's got to hurt. Arrogant, pompous bore. And a viewer called B Zen has some advice for Harry's next trip to the UK, writing, I understand the Tower of London is very secure. Why doesn't Harry stay there? Perhaps he can use his time there to do some thinking and get his head on straight. That's not a very B Zen comment, actually, is it? That's quite naughty. But please do keep those comments coming in. We love reading them, and we could read more, but we need to get back to the panel as we still have lots more to discuss. Now, Natasha, Prince Harry is back on screens, actually, with a new series. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so it's called Polo. As you say, it's on Netflix and it's produced by Archewell, which is Harry and Meghan's production company. And when you say back on screens, it's quite interesting and something that I think, Charlotte, you reported that he actually doesn't feature in it that much.
Right.
I think he pops up in the last episode, but it's really a look at the glamorous, exciting world of polo, which is a sport that Prince Harry grew up with. But, for most people, it is a pretty exclusive world, isn't it? It's not kind of football or something that you would know that much about. So that's the kind of sell of it. But yeah, the reaction to it hasn't been entirely positive.
Is polo exciting?
Well, it is quite fast-paced, but it's very difficult to tell who the different players are because they all wear helmets and the same T-shirt. So you're not vouching for any player in particular, and they're going really fast.
I knew that Charlotte would be the expert. Somehow, I just knew.
I have been to many a polo match, but...
See, I've never been, so you need to take me.
What the thing is about polo is that you don't watch the polo on the whole. You mainly stay in the tea tent drinking champagne and eating lovely
now I understand.
sandwiches.
Sounds great.
Speak for yourself.
That sounds great, actually.
Famously, no, the spectators don't really watch polo. They just enjoy the experience and look out at the nice horses every now and again.
So, Richard, you were given the homework of watching this fantastic series.
Look,
what did you make of it?
No one can accuse me of not working hard for this programme. I sat down last night and watched it.
God.
I didn't make it through all 5 episodes,
Oh,
but I
really?
watched quite a bit. And
You
I
fell
have to
asleep
say,
after episode 1?
I'm interested in polo. I've been writing about it, like Charlotte, or the social side of it, for about 20 years. So, it's an exciting sport. The thing about this programme is it is very trashy. When they launched Archewell, their production company, they had these very high-minded, lofty ideals about we're going to be telling important stories that need to be told. But what it resembled to me was the programmes like kind of Real Housewives of Beverley Hills and that sort of thing. Like genuinely, they were focusing on the private lives of the players and what was going on behind the scenes. And
Okay, well, that could be juicy.
it was quite homoerotic as well. Maybe one for the ladies. There were loads of scenes of, men putting on shirts or, this type of thing.
So, you're saying to me, that sounds a bit sort of like Jilly Cooper Rivals territory, is it?
Well, without the sex, sort of.
Or the humour.
Yeah, the thing is, polo is very much a rich man's sport. It really is, and so they want to sort of tell sort of the rags to riches type tale, but it didn't particularly come across.
Yes, and I thought that Archewell was all about relatable stories. You were saying earlier,
To be honest, my strong feeling is this is kind of the running out of their contract with Netflix. I think their contract is due to end next year, and they're sort of thinking, what can we make? Oh, I know, we'll make a programme about Harry's favourite pastime, which is polo. But they're very keen to take the credit. As soon as the programme's finished, it flashes up, made by Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
Okay, so they both made it.
They both made it, yes. But it was a bit naff.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, I've read one review that was an absolute stinker. It's fair to say, isn't it, that, the reviews haven't been kind.
No, The Guardian called it obnoxious.
Oh.
It's been getting about 1 or 2 stars. I mean, no more than that. And the fact is, it's not relatable. And, the mission statement of Archewell is to make, I think they said, truthful content with a relatable lens, which is such word salad. And this is not relatable at all. And there's no jeopardy, because if these polo players, if it doesn't work out for them or if they lose the match, they still have multiple homes in Miami, Florida. They still have private jets. They still have at least 6 polo ponies each. Okay, and a polo pony is worth about as much as a Ferrari. I mean, they're really valuable beasts.
Wow.
One guy shows off about the fact he doesn't even know the names of his horses in the show. He's
That's
like,
not very nice.
Don't even care what they're called. I mean, it's just so unrelatable. It's so horrible.
And also, it's on safer territory, isn't it, Natasha? After the very famous Netflix documentary from a couple of years ago, there's not really any controversy, any mention of the royals, so that sort of delicate truce gets to hold.
Yeah, clearly in this example and recent things they've done, they've stayed away from talking about the royal family, which in terms of potentially building bridges and maybe also obviously with the king's cancer, if they are trying to repair a relationship with the royal family, that seems to definitely be a good move. But in terms of generating interest and money,
well, it's the currency. It was the currency of the original kind of Netflix interest, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Ironically, the polo community, which I know, have been slightly critical of it for saying they haven't done enough references to Prince Philip or King Charles, because they were huge advocates for the sport back in the day, and they did wonders for the sport, and they're very synonymous with the sport. So they were actually quite surprised that Harry didn't do a nice nod to his father, a picture of him flashed up from his polo playing heyday. But of course he couldn't. He's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
And it's very American based, isn't it? Certainly from what I saw. So
it wouldn't be that fitting, I suppose.
So he's in a place where it's dangerous to even say something nice about his dad on the telly. Is that where we are?
That's what it's come to this, yeah.
Okay. Well, Richard, moving on, you wrote a piece that did seem to stir up a lot of debate online last week about Meghan's solo red carpet appearances.
Yes, I mean, I was just really drawing the contrast last week between Meghan's appearance. This was at a Tyler Perry sort of tribute gala in LA. And then it was the week that we had the state visit here. So while we had William and Catherine obviously being very regal, doing the diplomatic thing, then, overseas we had Meghan on another red carpet. And what's interesting is she's alone. We've seen this several times. And personally, I think it's a terrible look. You just don't really get that with the royal family, that, when they attend this sort of event, it's to meet people in a lineup afterwards, not just to be another celebrity, walking along a red carpet. But it's part of this new strategy, and it definitely is a strategy by Harry and Meghan, is to do things separately.
But we don't not see William and Catherine or Charles and Camilla doing things separately.
No, so they will. They do have separate engagements, like William and Catherine do. Often in the past they've done different things, but not really sort of on a red carpet like that. Right. On those occasions they would be together, and at the same time that Meghan was in LA at this gala, Harry was in New York carrying out engagements of his own. And it's very striking, the difference and that new strategy from them.
Do you think it's a conscious strategy to have separate entities for their appearances?
It must be, because for many reasons. One of them is that after a while people have started noticing this and commentating on it, and they've still stuck to the strategy. So you would have thought, basically some people have speculated, are they really separated, or is it just a career separation? And if I was their PR, I'd say, well, do something together to prove the naysayers wrong. But they haven't. They've carried on letting that narrative run, which I think is quite surprising. And the other reason is because behind the scenes, I'm hearing that Harry's been taking advice about how to become more popular. And he wants to kind of get back to that image of him as the cheeky chappy, which is why we saw him over Halloween doing some kind of comedy appearances, and he did one with Jelly Roll where he kind of pretended to get a tattoo. He's trying to get back to that jocular Prince Harry, the Playboy Prince image. And of course, having Meghan by his side doesn't really work with that. So I think it's a bid for him to get popular again. I think that's what he's trying to do. Meghan's reasons, I don't know.
I was going to say, so you think this is all Harry, look, you're killing my buzz. I need to get on with it. You know what I mean? What's Meghan's strategy?
I think partly, but I think Meghan, meanwhile, wants to present herself in the new year as the face of this cookery show, as like sort of Martha Stewart Mark II, as a sort of very sensible cookery, queen. So I suppose they're aiming for different images. I don't know whether, he said to Meghan, "You're cramping my style," but they're aiming for different reputational strategies, so they're doing it separately.
Isn't it interesting how Harry's programme about Polo actually is made by Meghan as well, and that's made very clear on the credits. Whereas I think you'll see with her cookery and lifestyle programme, that's just her.
Yeah,
I'll be very surprised if it says the Duke and Duchess of Sussex at the end of her show.
Can you imagine that Harry's cooked anything in his life?
No, beans on toast, maybe.
Yeah, can't see that. Well, anyway, speaking of food, Christmas is so close and around the corner. And Natasha, we've been given an insight into what the Sandringham Christmas might look like this year from both the King's son and his stepson, and it's looking rather different.
Yeah, so Prince William let slip at an engagement that there's going to be 45 people all having Christmas dinner on Christmas Day.
That's a lot of turkeys.
That's a lot of emergency dining chairs in any other house.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think hard for most people to fathom a kind of like Christmas lunch that's like that formal and that big. And one of the additional guests they've got this year is Tom Parker Bowles, Queen Camilla's son, King Charles's stepson, and it's the first time that he is joining the royal family on Christmas Day. And he talked about this in an interview, didn't he, where he said, normally he's used to kind of relaxing, I think very casual clothing, whereas, the royal Christmas is very formal. I think the women change several times a day.
I mean, I think we all know Tom, not best pleased whenever he has to wear a suit.
Yeah, it's going to definitely be changing up for him. So, yeah.
And Richard, you've written about this in your newsletter this week, actually, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, it is very significant, the fact that Tom will be there, and perhaps his sister Laura and her children as well. That hasn't been confirmed yet, because Tom said in this interview that his mother had often suggested that he join them, but he'd always said no. But this year, she said, "Come on, it's been a very difficult year for them," and he refers to the health problems that they've had. So she obviously wanted her children with her this year. So it's very poignant, and it makes it all the more significant that Harry will not be there from everything we've heard so far.
Well, do we know that? I mean, maybe he's going and we just don't know.
It hasn't been confirmed,
right.
But certainly that's what sources have told me, that they're not expecting Harry and Meghan to be there. And so to have the King's stepson there, but not his son, is significant. Yeah,
and speaking of Christmas again, Natasha, we've seen the card that the King has sent to his extensive list of contacts, I'm sure. What does it look like? What can you tell us?
Well, first of all, I actually found out from the palace the definitive number of people on their guest list, and they sent the Christmas card to 2,700 people.
And yet I still didn't get one.
Me neither. No. So that's actually pretty impressive. I doubt it was them kind of handwriting it all themselves, but still.
Don't ruin the illusion
maybe it was.
all
maybe
of those special recipients.
And but yes, the picture they chose, it was a really uplifting image taken in April by Millie Pilkington. She's a kind of favourite photographer used by the royals a lot. And it showed King Charles and Queen Camilla in the gardens at Buckingham Palace, they're sort of arm in arm, looking directly at the camera. It's a really kind of hopeful sort of, they're both smiling in the image. And it was taken around the time when the King was told that he would be able to return to public engagements. So, I think it's quite significant that they chose, of all the moments in that year, it's obviously been a hugely challenging year, but they want to send that message of kind of hope and optimism to everyone at Christmas time.
Did Royal Mail lose yours as well as mine, Charlotte?
They did. I'm really offended, frankly. I kind of want to say something rude about it.
Did you like it?
It was a bit boring. No, it wasn't boring. It wasn't very festive, though. I always think this is funny about the royals. They don't actually choose a festive picture, whereas I kind of very cheesily dress my kids up and make them stand by a tree for my Christmas card. But it's actually taken in spring, and I think that's all to do with the message of hope. And the King is looking really good in it, and so is Camilla. She looks great in blue. And I think it's from that time when they'd found out that the treatment was going really well. It was the spring, and they were, despite the cancer diagnosis, looking pretty good. So I don't blame them for choosing that one. And it's kind of a bit more relaxed than their last one. The last one was the coronation one. Well, it was very regal indeed. I would have loved to have got that one, actually. But, you know, it's fine.
There might be one on eBay.
Yeah, okay, I'll buy one. It's a bit depressing.
And Natasha, as we speak, Camilla is involved in a really lovely engagement. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so this is actually one of Queen Camilla's favourite engagements. It's at Clarence House, which is obviously where she lives in London. Every year, since 2006, I think, she invites children who have been really ill throughout the year to come to Clarence House and help decorate the Christmas tree. And obviously they have beautiful, massive Christmas trees in all the kind of royal buildings. And they get to meet Father Christmas as well. So it's just a really emotional, uplifting engagement, and yeah, it's one of the Queen's favourites.
She really does do some really lovely, heartwarming stuff, doesn't she? I think I love the look of that event. Now it is time to. Can you hear that? It is time for an update on one of our favourite unsung royal heroes, Richard. A return to an old favourite this week.
Yes, this is Princess Anne.
Of course.
Now, as our viewers will know, we do have a Duke and Duchess of Sussex, but they never visit Sussex. I'm not sure if Meghan actually ever did, but in their absence, Princess Anne has been doing the honours, and she's been carrying out engagements in that county, as well as in Essex and Wales. So she's been flying around, keeping them busy as ever.
Gosh, and it's not been the easiest week to stick to that travel schedule. We've had quite the storm, haven't we?
Terrible storms, terrible weather,
Yeah.
but not, a little weather trouble is not going to stop Princess Anne.
Indeed. Well, we've been talking about one lovely Christmas engagement, and now we'd like to look back at the one we were talking about earlier, Catherine's Christmas Carol service, and some of our favourite pictures. As you can imagine, there were a lot to choose from. What a beautiful event. Well, there's just time now to thank Natasha, Charlotte, Richard for being with me today, and to you, of course, for watching. We will see you next week on Palace Confidential. Bye for now.